Hey guys, so last weekend I did another SCCA autocross in this Porsche 914, and suspension. The front conies helped a lot, quite a bit, but it's still wallowing around. It's got a lot of body roll. It's squatting in the rear. So, to get the car even slightly competitive for the SCCA Solo Nationals, I've got to put rear conies and a front sway bar. So today I've got the rear conies. I'm going to put those on, and hopefully I get the sway bar, because I only have this weekend, this coming weekend, and next weekend to get all this stuff done. The front sway bar is pretty complex in that you got to do some drilling in the front fender wells. So that's going to be probably at least a day, about 8 hours to get that done. These rear conies should go quick, but we'll see what kind of cards this car is going to deal me as I go. So let's at the parts. So here's the rear conies. I was taking a quick look at the instructions. One thing they did not send are new bump stops. So I think I've got some. They're not new, but they're better than nothing. That I can put on these. Looks like they've sent hardware, the adjusting knob. It's not a whole lot. And then the perch. Now the perch is adjustable. So you've got this split ring you can put in 3 different positions. I'm going to go ahead and set it for the lowest position. So that would be closest to the bottom of the shock, which effectively pushes everything up, which lowers the car. I don't really even have to take measurements. Maybe I will, just for my own edification, but I think this is the spot I want to be in. And I think the reason they limit you to these 3 spots, because the suspension on a Porsche 914, you can only lower so much without affecting the caster and the camber and all the tracking adjustments on the rear control arm get all monkeyed up if you try to lower any more, and you can't get it to track right. So and for my purposes, I think this low position will be fine. I'm going to use the original springs just because I haven't bought another set, and also the class calls for OE spring rate, so I'm kind of stuck on that one anyway. So let me get the wheels off and let's get going. So I got the spring compressor. It's so tight in there, it's really hard to get 2 of them up in there, but that should be enough to take some tension off. Now I'll go down here and pull this bolt. All that weld, I don't know if you remember from my earlier video, I tried to put a tie down piece of flat iron on there to tie down the trailer. Well, that failed because I was using that stupid flux core welder. I might try that again with my Lincoln stick welder. Should get better penetration on that bolt. But what's next is take that bolt out of there. It's an odd one. It just has like 2 flat sides there and there. Got to get that big nut off, and then that should slide right out. Okay, we got that out. So with that spring compressed that much, that trailing arm only came down. Well, you can see the axle rests on the heat exchanger, so it's loose now. So you really do need to compress that spring, because otherwise, well, it just ain't gonna work. You're gonna really struggle to get that thing out. So next I go up top, and there's a nut on the top of the shock spring strut, whatever, and it should come right out of the shock tower. So there's your top nut inside of the trunk. Once you get that off, that whole assembly should drop down. So that came out just as expected. You have the bushing that fits on top, the flat washer. Looks like there is a little bit of an orientation there. Unlike the front Coney kit, it did not come with a new bushing on the new flat washer, so you got to reuse those. But these look good. I suspect they've been replaced at some point. That's not a 50-year-old bushing. So let's go to the bench and look at the shock strut. So I took the spring compressor off already. So you got another bushing on top, right? And then this, oh, so that's what, it's like a fluted washer kind of thing. There's still a little bit of tension on that spring, so I'm gonna turn the camera off for a second so I can get both hands on that, and it's probably gonna pop up and spring up in the air. So that fluted spacer is actually threaded, so you actually have to get 2 wrenches on it, and well, it's actually turning now, but it's got a little squared off head where at first, because it's going to be really rusty, I can't do this with one hand. But anyway, you can get it started. I lubricated it with some lube, and now it's turning, so let me get that thing off there. So yeah, I put the spring compressors back on because I was really worried it's going to pop and break my hand or something. So yeah, got the fluted spacer off with the looks like a washer on top. Then you got the top hat, and there you go. Looks like there's another washer below the top hat. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we'll keep all that stuff in order, and then next just pull the spring off, and I'm going to clean the spring up. Don't have to worry about the strut itself or the shock because that's not going to be reused, but I will take some measurements and I will report what I find out about the elevation of the perch as compared to the Coney. So it appears that to the bottom of the perch to where the bolt goes through, the bolt hole on the original shock is about 7.5. So let me put the Coney perch on there. Well, just kind of looking at it, I can tell you there's 7.5. I mean, I think I need the lower position because that's really gonna, the bottom of that perch, let's see, that perch is every bit of an inch. So subtracting an inch, that should put that spacing more like 6.5. Should lower the rear about an inch, 3/4 of an inch. And if it's not acceptable, all I have to do is put the spring compressors on, you know, get the perch up off that split ring, and move it to adjust it. I don't think you have to take the whole shock off. I might be wrong about that. So I moved the split ring. I got the perch in the bottom position. And when I compare with the original, you know, trying to line up the mounting point, it does look like the perch has gone down maybe 1/4 inch. There it is. Yeah. Yeah, after you get the spring in there and everything. Maybe 3/8 or maybe even a half. Anyway, I think that's the right spot. And by the way, here's the part numbers that we're dealing with. This is the OE. It is, in fact, the OE shock, because there's a 914 number. It's a Bose shock. The gray ones are typically what came from the factory. I bet you this has been on the car the whole time. And then here's what we're putting on, the 8241 1050 Sport, adjustable. So there you go. All right, I got them pretty well cleaned up, mostly Cosmoline, not a whole lot of rust. Really hard to get on the inside of these. I guess if you got a long wire handle brush, you can get in there. That green mark is the spring rate. That's how Porsche codes them. I'll bet you it's less than 100 foot-pounds. It's probably like 90. I can try to look that up somewhere, but I'm stuck with these for now, so finish cleaning up, put it back on. So out of my parts stash, the best I could come up with is these bump stops. They're a little bit big as far as like how they fit over the shock, but I think they'll serve their purpose okay. They may be a little bit short as well. Those are probably off of front shocks on 944s, I'll bet. I don't see a part number, but I think it's better than having nothing. And if I want to get the real deal, I can always install that later. So in the hardware bag, you got your adjusting knob. This is like a nylon scraper that goes on the shock, and it should be at the bottom. So I took the bump stop back off, put this on. It just kind of scrapes mud and stuff. I didn't put those on the front because the fronts have dust covers. So anyway, you got that. Then you got the bump stop, right? And then and this is the original washer. It sits under the top hat, right? Or the top hat. I guess that's what it's called. And then you get that top hat on there. It's kind of indexed in that the spring. See how it's indentated? The spring needs to nestle up in that top hat once I get the nut on there. Then here's the Coney fluted spacer, for lack of a better description, that goes on top. Now as I tighten this down, it's going to compress the spring even more, and I can take the spring compressors off, and then they send a new nut, and that goes above the bushing. So let me get all that together and we'll show you what that looks like. Right, so with fluted spacer on, spring nestled into the top hat, perch lowered, that's what you got. Boy, putting it in a vise really helps, and you won't screw that bushing up, so don't worry about that. So now I need to stick it back into the shock tower and compress the spring again, and then put the long bolt back in. So I'll do one more clip here where I show the net result after I do the other side. I got to move on. It's going to get really, really hot today, and I want to have this done pretty quick before I cook up. Hey guys, what I found out when I went to the driver's side is you don't really have to compress the spring when you're taking that big bolt out. It's actually, you know, with the top hat on and mounted up in the strut tower and everything, this trailing arm is pretty loose. So you can knock it out without, it just saves one step of trying to get your damn spring compressor up in the shock tower and everything. Time saver. So I messed up on the passenger side. There's a bushing, I'm sorry, not a bushing, a big flat washer that goes sandwiched in between the fluted spacer and the top hat. Yeah, I came back to the bench and it was laying right here, and I'm like, holy moly's, I forgot that. Then that's your lower bushing. It goes up in the shock tower. So that's the way it should look when you take it to the car to put it back in the shock tower. Sorry about that. Okay, I got them both on there, and when I set it down on the garage floor, I mean, it feels dramatically stiffer. So the next step is take it out for a test run. I got both the fronts and the rears set full soft right now. Take a run down the road and see how that feels, and then maybe try another run at full stiff, just to get an idea of you know, what the difference is between the two settings. I mean, ultimately I'll need to get on an autocross course and do some test and tune runs to really dial them in. But this is about 2.5 hour, 3 hour job. You know, it would have gone quicker if I wouldn't been shooting these clips. But these are the shocks that Porsche put for the sports packages. Now, I don't know that they had adjustable perches back in the day, and that's another thing I'm going to look at, is the ride height once the suspension settles. So on the next video I'll report back. Next video will be shooting the well, actually, I'm not going to shoot doing the sway bar. I'm going to give a link to a really good sway bar installation video. Much better than I could ever do. So, and I'll be following it whenever I put the sway bar on this one. So look for that, guys. Comment. Let me know what you think. And have a good day.